is how a single season can ruin a legacy.
Imagine this.
Oh man, they're gonna talk about that One Punch Man shit. They're gonna talk about that One Punch Man shit. Hold up. Oh my god, I went 0.5. I'm crazy, bro. I went crazy, bro. I meant to do 1.25.
You just finished watching an anime that absolutely blew your mind. All you can think about is how much you want another season of this masterpiece. So you wait, and wait, and wait, sometimes for years, until finally the first new episode drops. You're extremely excited and ready to get that same incredible feeling. You click play, and then it is not good. But hey, it's the first episode, right? They're just getting warmed up. So you watch the second episode, and it's also not good. You keep watching episode after episode, waiting for that moment when it becomes as good as the previous season. But that never happens.
Bro,
Instead,
no, I'm not gonna lie.
You slowly start to realize the
Look,
truth.
I'm not gonna lie. In One Punch Man season 1, I remember when I was watching that shit like years ago when I was like trying to lose weight at the gym because I did have like a big belly at the time. I felt like I was way bigger and I was working on the elliptical. Bro, season 1 had me glued because they were going crazy in that shit. And it's sad to see like how much it's fallen off because of, you know, the animation and shit.
This is terrible, awful, abysmal garbage. That situation doesn't happen very often, but when it does, it is one of the most painful experiences you can have as an anime or manga fan. So today, I want to show you some series that people absolutely loved until one bad season ruined everything. Let's start with a very strong one. Blue Lock is a series that had so much hype, the manga became the best-selling series of 2023, even beating stuff like One Piece and Jujutsu Kaisen, which is ridiculous.
Blue Lock beat One Piece and
thrown into this
JJK?
place called Blue Lock, a training facility designed to create Japan's best striker. But here's the thing. They literally put these kids in a battle royale situation where if you lose, you're out and you can't play for Japan anymore.
Oh.
Ever. When season 1 first dropped, it was like nothing we'd ever seen. There was no power of friendship or teamwork that you see in every other sports anime. No, this thing was straight up war. And people loved it. The animation was clean, the psychological aspect was brutal, and even people who normally wouldn't touch a sports anime were kind of into it. On top of that, the timing was pretty perfect, because the anime was dropping right after the Football World Cup, when everyone was still on that football high.
Perfect timing.
By the time season 1 wrapped up, everyone thought this might actually be the next king of sports anime. And manga readers knew that the next season would cover the U20 match, which is basically considered one of the best arcs in the entire series. So, 2 years later, season 2 comes around, and everyone's expecting this thing to be peak. I mean, all the elements were there. And it did, in fact, become legendary. For all the wrong reasons. Suddenly, we went from some of the coolest action sequences to elite football players just sliding on the field. The movements were stiff, the animation was heavy, they kept showing irrelevant shots of audiences instead of football, and in some cases, the characters looked different than the manga. And also, for some reason, we were introduced to these freaking color filters. People started calling it a PowerPoint, and that was not really an exaggeration. But it wasn't just one bad episode. It kept happening throughout the entire season. The most important matches, the moments that were supposed to make us lose our minds, looked truly awful. The problem was that, unlike a lot of other sports anime, the reason people watched Blue Lock was purely because of how crazy the football was. So when it wasn't, you know, fans were not happy. The anime became a meme overnight. But here's the worst part. The last episode had this action sequence that was absolutely beautiful, like genuinely some of the best animation of the entire series, including season 1. It was kind of like the animators were saying, yeah, we can actually do this if we have the time and the budget, which just made the whole situation feel even worse. Because in this case, they did it.
It's one of those things where like they didn't give them enough time to animate the shit. Bro, I don't understand why they keep doing this shit. That shit's terrible. Give the motherfuckers the prep time, bro. Yo, Japan don't be playing. Japan just be like, release it. But we can make it better. Release it. We just want to make money.
And this is how season 2 probably ruined Blue Lock's chances of ever becoming the new king of sports anime.
Damn.
But unfortunately, this was not the worst case
of
an animation downgrade.
Wait, who made that shit? Oh, Mappa made that shit? Say on God. Mappa animated Blue Lock? No? Okay, never mind. So you're just saying Mappa abuse as in like, you know, they did the same shit Mappa did with like JJK. And you know what's crazy? Still, that whole fight with Sukuna and that shit, even though that shit wasn't even finished, that shit was still raw as fuck.
The Seven Deadly Sins is the story of these legendary knights called the Seven Deadly Sins, who basically go on a quest to save the world from evil demons. The first 2 seasons were pretty solid. Were they amazing? No. But did they have a blend of flashy magic fights, goofy characters, and enough weird moments to keep some people entertained? Yeah, the animation was clean, the fights looked good, and people were genuinely invested in the story. When season 2 ended, manga readers knew that the next part of the anime was going to be one of the most epic conflicts in the entire season. Especially this one fight between the 2 characters Meliodas.
I can never, like, every time I look at this character, bro, like the protagonist of this shit, I'll never forget when I saw on Instagram or I think on TikTok where this girl got a huge ass tattoo of the protagonist in the Seven Deadly Sins, but looking like he was in a different form. Yo, and that was like the ugliest tattoo I've ever seen, and she got that shit on her whole thigh, and everybody in the comments was just like, yo, this is not it, Chief. Everybody in the comments was like, yo, this tattoo is not it, Chief. This shit is ugly. And she was like, I like it, and everybody in the comments was like, this shit is ass. Yo, I felt bad.
Escanor, that was apparently going to be the most hyped
Oh, that's the form, I think.
And then season 3 happened, and remember how I said the animation in the first 2 seasons was clean? Well, season 3 was a bit more complicated. The Meliodas versus Escanor fight, you know, that one fight that was supposed to be freaking incredible, well, that became what might be the worst looking action sequence in anime history, and I'm not exaggerating, just look at this. The proportions of the characters were completely off, and the fight choreography was just, I don't know, have you ever seen Beyblade? What was happening behind the scenes is that they completely changed the studio, which meant their budget was way smaller. So you had new people trying to animate the most important arc of the series with almost no resources, and surprise, surprise, it didn't work. The internet did what it does and turned this disaster into memes, and the fight became absolutely legendary. Later on, they did try to fix it with season 4. By then, it was too late. Most people had already checked out, and even though the animation got slightly better, it was still nowhere near the quality of the early seasons. The damage was done. People started calling it 7 Deadly Frames, and ultimately,
Seven Deadly Frames is crazy. I've never heard of some shit like that.
The thing that ruins a series isn't even animation. In the Promised Neverland,
Yo, every time I see Promised Neverland, I get mad, bro. I don't even want to think about it. Yo, because this one hit home because I really like season 1. Yo, this one hurt, bro. This one hurt.
You got 3 kids, Emma, Norman, and Ray. They live in this orphanage called Gracefield with a bunch of other children. They're all loving it, especially their sweet teacher they call Mom. In the beginning of the first season, a girl gets adopted but forgets to bring her plushie with her. Emma and Norman run to give it back to her, but as they're at the gate of the orphanage, they discover that the kids are actually being raised like cows for some demons who want to eat their brains. The beauty of this first...
Yes, bro, that episode 1 was like... Yo, that episode 1 was so... Like, bro, that shit just... Oh my God, that shit built the hype so hard for this show for me. I was like, no way this is what's happening right now. Dude, they cooked with episode 1.
Part is that these kids can't just punch their way through.
The way they animated, like, their facial expressions, the music... I felt every emotion in this show because of how well, the studio that was animating season 1 was in their bag. Like, I felt everything.
They have to use their brains to find a way to escape with everyone. And that was good freaking television, baby. I'm talking about a masterclass in suspense and horror. The way they revealed the truth about the orphanage, the careful planning of the escape, the psychological war between the kids and Mom. It was all perfect. Now, here's where things get a bit weird, because the manga's second part is just not as good as the first part. But you know what? That's not necessarily bad, because sometimes anime adaptations can actually improve the manga. We've seen it happen before, so people were feeling pretty good about season 2, and then season 2 happened. And remember all that planning and intelligent problem solving I just talked about? Yeah, so they kind of threw all of that in the garbage. The story was wrapped in, I think, 11 episodes, which is almost nothing. They deleted entire arcs, including the Goldie Pond arc, which was one of the best parts of the entire manga. Fans were comparing season 2 to season 1, and the difference was shocking. Even people who hadn't read the manga could tell something was off. What really gets me is that season 1 had turned The Promised Neverland into a potential modern classic. Now, when people bring up the series, the first thing they think about is how...
Bro, every time this show comes up, I'll recommend season 1. I'll be like, watch season 1, end season 1, and that's it. Don't even bother. Season 2 doesn't exist. That's what you just got to tell people.
How badly
season 2 doesn't exist.
Everything up. Other times, an anime just adds way too much stuff that just wasn't in the manga. Naruto was one of the biggest series of all time. I mean, it's the kind of thing that even if you're not really into anime, you've probably heard about. And when it ended, they decided to make a sequel about Naruto's son called Boruto, which honestly, kind of good idea. When it first started, the manga wasn't really everyone's thing, but some people were still really into it. It felt different to Naruto in some interesting ways, and fans thought it could become something special with a bit of time. But here's where everything went in the wrong direction. They decided to make Boruto a weekly anime right from the start, just like the original Naruto. The problem, of course, is that the manga had barely started. Like, we're talking about maybe a handful of chapters, and instead of slowing down, which would probably have been the solution, the studio making the anime said, oh yeah, we're doing this. And what happens when you have to make a weekly anime but don't have enough of the actual
Bro, at that point, it's kind of like you're just making slop because you're just trying to think. That's terrible. Why the fuck would they greenlight that shit if they don't have like the foundation yet for the show? They were just like, yo, make anything up, bro. Next episode, like, bro, it's like you gotta think on the fly. That sounds terrible.
Manga? You get filler. Lots.
Yes.
And lots of filler. And listen, Naruto had filler, Bleach had filler, One Piece had filler. But for Boruto, we're talking about a different beast because 70 to 80% of the entire series is
70% of Boruto's filler? I remember motherfuckers was recommending that show to me. I should beat your ass.
Content that has nothing to do with the actual story. Now, if you're used to modern anime, you might be thinking, okay, filler is an extra story, that's a good thing. Let me tell you something very clearly. Filler is usually the worst thing ever. And that's
yes, it is, because there's just a lot of dumb shit that's happening that got nothing to do with the actual show. Like, I used to hate it whenever, like, I used to watch Naruto, and then it'd be, yo, Naruto, no kizzy. If the episode started with this song, you know it's some dumb shit about to happen. Instantaneously, if Naruto episode started with that song, it was some stupid shit. Oh, Konohamaru lost this scarf. This whole episode, we're looking for Konohamaru's scarf. ¿Y por qué? Why the fuck we watching this shit? I can't find my scarf. Just buy a new one. Like, fuck out of here, bro.
Change anything important. Characters can't die, relationships can't evolve, people can grow in any meaningful way because everything has to reset back to normal by the end. It's like watching a show where nothing that happens actually matters. And Boruto's filler wasn't just bad. It was terrible. Like, I'm not even caught up in this thing, but I recently saw a clip of one of the main characters fighting dinosaurs.
Why Sasuke got a weird-ass head? You saw his head?
I'm not even caught up in this thing, but I recently saw a clip of one of the main...
Nah, hold on. I gotta... Hold on. Let me take out my face cam. Look at Sasuke's head. What the fuck? Ew! Nah, bro, dripless. What the fuck is this? Zero drip, zero aura?
Characters fighting dinosaurs. These guys are ninja. The manga itself kept going on
breaks, dinosaurs?
Which made the whole situation even worse because the anime team was basically creating content without knowing where the story was supposed to go. And the fan reaction was pretty much what you'd expect. Longtime Naruto fans started treating Boruto like it was not even part of the series. New fans found it difficult to get invested and preferred the manga by far. And after 293 episodes of this madness, they finally put the anime on a break. Thank you. The damage to Boruto was massive. When people talk about the anime now, the first thing that comes up isn't the story or the characters. It's the filler. But I've heard that the new Boruto manga, Two Blue Vortex, is supposed to be, like, amazing. So maybe there's some kind of hope for a big comeback.
Yeah, I gotta, if I was to get into Boruto, I gotta see why bro looked like that. Because bro looked like he got sauce. He looked like he been through some shit. He got the eye cut. Isn't that the OG Naruto headband where, like, he got the cut in the middle through the Sasuke fight, and now he got another cut coming down with a sword? Bro look dripped up.
Like, amazing. So maybe there's some kind of hope for a big comeback. But man, this combined with the fact that a lot of people already didn't like the manga, that was, the perfect combination to destroy a reputation. Other times, a series is ruined by the fact that the anime just creates a whole new series. Tokyo Ghoul is a story that I actually love. You've got this world where humans are just living their lives, but there are also these things called ghouls who look like regular people, but they actually eat regular people. The story follows Ken Kaneki.
Just another game. Gets into a after this
huge accident, and now he has to survive in a world where ghouls are hunted. The manga is kind of incredible in my opinion. We're talking about psychological horror with some of the most beautiful and disturbing artwork out there. They also became ridiculously popular. I mean, at some point, this thing was legit everywhere. And when they turned it into an anime, season 1 was decent. Not great, but decent. That's because they toned down a lot of the brutal stuff that made the manga so special, which was disappointing, but it still managed to capture some of that magic. So then, people were expecting season 2 to come out and just follow the story. But no, because the anime team decided to do something absolutely insane, to create their own original story called Tokyo Ghoul Square Root of A, which is the worst name for an anime ever. Now, some people are kind of optimistic because
in the title.
Oh, hell no. Alternate version of the story.
You know I got NYC education.
Get them. The main character joins the villain
at the start
of the season. Not only is this super different from the manga, but they never really explain why. Honestly, it genuinely felt like one of these weird fan fictions. Nothing anyone does makes any sense anymore because they removed all the character development from the manga. Kaneki even turned into this silent, mysterious edgelord who barely speaks. Manga readers were mad because they wanted to see the actual story adapted, and anime-only viewers were just confused because nothing made sense. So in the end, this season satisfied absolutely no one. Square Root of A was so bad that it kind of ruined the future adaptations too. When they later tried to adapt the rest of the manga, those seasons struggled because Square Root of A had already destroyed the anime. And fortunately, because of that, Tokyo Ghoul is now known as the series that just deserves.
This is the show Tokyo Ghoul. Y'all told me to read this shit. I remember. Everybody in the chat was like, Retro, for the love of God, don't watch it. Read it. I still gotta read this shit.
Better. The crazy thing is that sometimes a season can win Best Anime of the Year and still be ruined.
Daddy Gojo!
This guy called Yuji, who basically has a curse inside of him and has to protect Japan from a bunch of monsters and just bad people. And when I say that the manga blew up, I mean that this thing went on a generational run that had everyone losing their freaking mind. It was the most sold manga for several years, and when season 1 dropped, it was absolutely phenomenal. Like, genuinely one of the best debuts you could imagine. The animation was sick, the characters were iconic, the pacing was awesome, and ultimately, it won Anime of the Year. Most of that thanks to Studio Mappa. But this point, the situation was that the manga
even though they slave their workers,
and we know that season 2 is going to cover some of the most action-packed parts of it. The hype was insane. And you know what? The season started really strong. The animation looked different, but still gorgeous. But then, something insane happened. Instead of just maintaining the quality of animation, the animation actually kept getting better and better and better. I'm not exaggerating when I say that we were getting movie quality stuff on a weekly basis. Every single episode had fight scenes that would have been
I don't know how the fuck
Mappa's entire
Mappa swept shot.
You genuinely had to be there to understand the insanity this thing created. Once again, Mappa had delivered, but maybe they had delivered a bit too much. As the season went on, animators started speaking out about the working conditions in this studio.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, it was on Twitter. Yo, on Twitter, they were like, they're slaving us. Oh my God, bro. You know, I can't even blame them for being angry. But I remember when that shit was blowing up on Twitter and everybody was retweeting that shit.
And even though the anime industry is known for being brutal, this is the kind of situation where people apparently had days to complete work that should have taken way, way longer. During this period of time, Mappa had taken on a bunch of difficult projects like Chainsaw Man, Attack on Titan's final season, Vinland Saga, and
and you see what people are saying now about Chainsaw Man? Now everybody is saying that they don't like how the characters look in the Rizé arc movie and that they appreciate how the characters looked in the original release of Chainsaw Man. And I'm like, what? Now y'all want to dick? Look, because I'm not going to lie, I rewatched season 1 of Chainsaw Man and I thought it looked good. I had like no complaints really for it. I was like, hey, I fucked with how it looks. I kind of liked how like the tone of the colors were in the show and I fucked with it. But everybody didn't like it. Then now people are looking back on it and saying that they're liking it. And then they're saying that some of the characters in the Rizé arc, they kind of don't like how the colors look on some characters compared to the original. And they're putting like side-by-side comparisons. I'm just like, bro, you can't like, well, what's the word I'm looking for? You can't please nobody, bro, because people will bitch no matter what. You said that shit was never bad. People just snobs, exactly. That's what I'm feeling. Because I rewatched that shit. I watched season 1 twice. And I was like, hey, I fuck with how season 1 looked. And I like the outros too, because I was rewatching all the outros that were fire.
And JJK season 2. So you had this insane situation where the episodes were still absolutely incredible because animators were pulling off literal miracles despite everything that was going on. But knowing that made watching the show feel weird because you knew what was going on. Social media was flooded with posts supporting them while absolutely destroying Mappa. This wasn't just an anime thing anymore. It was a massive deal. And at some point, someone who worked on the season even said that one of the episodes had only achieved 30% of its potential. So let me be clear. These guys created some of the best animation we've ever seen, and you're telling me that was 30%?
That's what I'm saying, bro. And it was that episode where fucking Fushiguro hit that shit, and Sukuna was fighting that motherfucker. And what's crazy is when I saw that episode, I feel like chat was the one that told me that, oh yeah, the episode wasn't even fully complete. But when I was watching it, I was like, my God, this shit looks amazing. And it was at 30%.
And JJK Season 2 won Anime of the Year again. And it deserved it. Unfortunately, you had the situation where the final product was amazing, but the methods used to create it were messed up, which really took away from how awesome the moment was. And nowadays, this
he had the cinema pose. He said,
think about when they think about Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2.
Cinema.
A season that could have been perfect. But to be honest, there are also times when a series just becomes worse. Rising of the Shield Hero was one of the most promising isekai out there for a while. Season 1 introduced the main character, Naofumi, this regular dude who gets summoned to another world as one of 4 legendary heroes. But instead of getting a sword or something cool, he gets a shield. And then, plot twist, he gets accused of a crime he didn't commit. Suddenly, this guy who was supposed to be a hero becomes the most hated person in the kingdom, and he has to figure out how to deal with this situation. The genius of this setup is that Naofumi has to rebuild everything from scratch, while everyone treats him like garbage. We're talking about the kind of redemption where you get to see this guy who got betrayed slowly make his way back up. And that felt pretty different from a lot of other isekai out there. The series truly did such a good job of making you hate the villains where you just wanted to see them get what they deserved. So everyone was super hyped for Season 2. And then it happened, and the problems were immediately obvious. The pacing was so rushed that it kind of felt like they were trying to speedrun the entire series. They set up this really interesting premise and then did everything in their power to not do the thing that made the series interesting. But the worst part is that they completely destroyed Naofumi as a character. Every major battle felt like the same repetitive cycle where he uses his ability, it goes wrong, then he gets saved by the power of friendship. They crammed a lot of stuff into like 13 episodes, and from what I understand...
Damn, I'm not gonna lie. You know a show felt like that low-key too, and I told you guys this, remember? What was it? Demon Slayer. I said Demon Slayer felt like that too. Like when I started watching Demon Slayer Season 2, every episode was like that. It'd be like Tanjiro fighting the thing, something serious happens, flashback. Flashback, bro gets OP powered up, but the OP power-up is not enough. Then the demon gets a flashback. Then the demon gets a flash. And every time I was watching the episode, I'm like, they gonna do it again, aren't they? They gonna do the flashback thing again. And it happened every single time. And it's not like, you know what? I ain't gonna shit on it because at the end of the day, their animation was on point. The fight scenes were fire. They were on point. It just got to a point where it started to get predictable sometimes. But other than that, I still enjoy Demon Slayer for what it was, and I fuck with it. You said we been know Demon Slayer was repetitive slop with good animation. Thought you said that about the movie. No, what did I say about the movie? No, the movie did that too. The movie did that too. Every fight, every time something serious happened, a flashback happened, and then it's kind of like the movie did the same thing too a little bit. They because the thing is too, you also got to think about it like this: the Demon Slayer movie was technically episodes spliced together. I don't know. Somebody might say that's a hot take. I think the Demon Slayer movie was like 6 episodes spliced together, and they put it all together, and then they were like, this is a film. Because that's how it felt, the movie. You said, bro, I was falling asleep during the flashback. Okay, like I said, that one flashback where the guy where he had that ice move like this, and then like, I forgot his name. Something with a Oz, like with an A. I don't know, bro, but that flashback was too long.
And they cut out massive chunks of important content while keeping only the most basic plot points, which kinda removed all the context of what made these moments cool. Light novel readers were especially angry, and the damage to Shield Hero's reputation was massive. So even though they eventually made Season 3, all the excitement and hype that followed Season 1 was completely gone, and the series went from being a rising star of the isekai genre to becoming forgotten. But there are other times where the adaptation doesn't even adapt the original thing.
Hey, look! The Three Stooges came out to play.
Netflix has always been a bit weird.
Yo, this is Fabrinsky's favorite show.
Is amazing, but other times it can be really bad. So when they announced they were working on a Devil May Cry anime, the vibe was a bit weird. The thing you need to know is that DMC is a legendary video game franchise.
That was Fabrinsky 10 out of 10. He didn't give a fuck.
This man basically
loved this show.
While looking
cool, not even here. Perfect.
And just being
I get to go off on Fabrinsky. Fabrinsky, if you ever watch this VOD, this is your favorite show.
And Dante's goofy personality that somehow makes you love him. There had actually been previous anime and manga adaptations, but none of them really took off. And on top of that, Adi Shankar was going to direct the whole thing, which was good and bad news. This man had a reputation for taking pretty brutal creative liberties and adding some weird elements to his projects, but Castlevania had been a massive success, so maybe this would work. And when the anime dropped, it was a bit weird. On the one hand, the animation was really good. The scenes were fluid, the fights were brutal, and it captured the combat part of the games very well. But here's the thing. The series missed a tiny thing. The Devil May Cry part. Instead of making Dante the charismatic center of the story like he is in the games, they decided to focus on these two other characters. The White Rabbit, who's this Alice in Wonderland inspired demon, and Mary, who's technically from the games but was never a main character. Dante felt like just some dude in his own show, which is just not a
he was
great
a
idea.
side
The tone
character?
was also unusual. The humor was mostly a bunch of swearing that didn't match the game's style. And visually, it looked more like a futuristic setting than the gothic atmosphere the games were known for.
You said
and
Lady
honestly,
was annoying in the show? That's crazy.
Kind of looked like Ben 10 aliens. The fan base
It
completely split in
does.
half. On one side, you had the game fans who were absolutely losing their minds. They were calling it one of the worst adaptations they'd ever seen and saying it completely missed the
They said
point of
Ben
what
10
made Devil May Cry
aliens.
special. And also that it felt like a generic action anime that just happened to have the Devil May Cry name slapped on it. But on the other side, you had people who had never played the games and thought the anime was actually pretty good. This created a very weird situation where you had two completely different groups of people watching the same show and having opposite reactions. A lot of people who hadn't played the games were dismissing the original fans, not realizing that they themselves would probably be super annoyed if that happened to a series that they love. Season 2 was announced, but if you look at the YouTube comments of the trailer, you can already tell that people are not happy. And finally, we have the most controversial example of the last couple of years. One Punch Man was always one of the coolest stories out there. It started as this small webcomic, then turned into an extremely popular manga, and finally, an anime. You've got Saitama, this bald dude who got so ridiculously overpowered
One
that he
Punch
can
Man
end any fight
made me
with
think
one
it was
punch.
cool
But
to be
instead of being happy
bald.
about it, he's bored out of his mind. It's genius because
He
it
was
takes
my
the typical
favorite
getting stronger
egg.
trope that you see in pretty much every anime and flips it. The series blew up because it perfectly balanced comedy with some insane action sequences. The first season was animated by Madhouse, which is a studio known for creating absolute bangers. And it was a banger. I'm talking about crisp animation, great comedic timing.
Madhouse made fucking Hunter x Hunter, bro. I gotta do more research with the studios, bro. I gotta do more research with the studios. Fuck.
Thing you would want. It was a perfect example of a
season 1
studio
was
that completely
fire. You say you didn't know by now?
understood the
Oddity.
assignment.
You
Season
know
2
I got
arrived a
NYC
few years later.
education.
They switched from Madhouse to JC Staff, and you could immediately tell something was off. The animation took a huge hit, and even though it was not that bad, fans were super disappointed. But there was still hope. Maybe season 3 was going to be a banger once again because we had waited 6 entire years for that to happen. This thing had to be incredible, right? Wrong. Season 3 finally dropped, and it wasn't just a step down from season 1 and 2. It was like the worst thing ever. The animation, the lack of animation
also made
was
the original
crazy. We're
Beyblade
talking about
anime.
fight scenes that look like PowerPoint
Madhouse
presentations, characters literally sliding across backgrounds, and color filters to hide how broken everything looks underneath.
Yeah,
like
I don't understand
some
why
kind
they
of
kept
Instagram
switching.
filter. There was this one specific moment that became super famous where an important character was supposed to be sliding down a hill, but it was literally just a static image moving across the screen. The Monster Association arc, which is one of the highlights of the entire series, looked truly bad. Every single episode became a meme, but like the bad kind of meme. JC Staff just did not have the resources that Madhouse did. They were working with a fraction of the budget and time, and it shows in every single frame. The same problems from season 2 weren't just repeated, they were amplified to an insane degree. From what I understand, this was one of the worst situations of the anime industry just preventing a studio from doing something good. Probably more than all.
That's insane, and it's sad with One Punch Man because I watched One Punch Man and I finished season 1 and I thought it was amazing. I started season 2 and for some reason, season 2 was the beginning of the downfall and I never continued season 2. Like I think I watched like 2 episodes of season 2 and I just stopped. But now I'm kind of glad I stopped because fuck, that's a big fall moment. Because now everything just got worse. Season 3 got worse and it's just like, man, at least in my brain, I still have season 1 in that shit, and I was like, wow, that was some of the best animation I've seen.
The other series I talked about before, the fan reaction was insane. Social media exploded with side-by-side comparisons between season 1 and season 3, and it was kind of horrifying to look at. This season made people regret season 2, which is crazy to say because at the time, people hated season 2. But here's the weird thing about the whole situation. While the anime's reputation got absolutely destroyed, it actually did something unexpected for the manga. It looked so terrible that a bunch of people decided to check out the source material and discovered that One and Yusuke Murata had been creating an absolute masterpiece this entire time. Personally, I've been rewatching season 1 recently, and it just feels bad, man. Seeing how incredible this series can be when it's handled properly, and then knowing what actually happened, It's heartbreaking. Ultimately, one of the episodes got 1.4 out of 10 on IMDb.
Oh my god,
which might be the lowest rated anime episode in history.
1.4, bro? That's insane, bro. You got a 1.4? GG's. Let me show love to this video.
Imagine this.
What's his name? Pave Lover. Good shit, Brody. Good video, baby. Nice. Very good video, bro.